yes, I am your hostess, Patricia Bell. I have been a vintage astrologer for 5 decades, and yes, I am a registered medium here in Lilydale. But you may notice my background is different from the last YouTube that we did with Rick. It's because I am right now in Lilydale. And the sun is shining and it's gorgeous and it's beautiful. And I am so happy to be able to talk to Rick again. I mean, I cannot say enough accolades about this man. I know that he's been around the world assisting all of us to be able to move into, as I would say, a new spiritual consciousness. And this to me, bravo, bravo, because this is what we all need. And this is what, in order to make things work in our life to the
Well, we
best
each we
that they
each
can.
need to do what we can. Isn't that part of what this is all about? And thank you, Patricia. Lovely to see you again. Lovely to be here. And I am so jazzed about August. I'm looking forward to it. Not only to be able to share what I have to share, but also to hear what some of my co-conspirators, the word conspirator just means to breathe as one. Conspirit. It's to breathe together. And you've put together, Lilydale has put together an amazing little clan of people with some really good stuff to share. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I am too, because I think um, when asked what would be your A team, you dropped some suggestions in the box. And yes, we have the beautiful Rachel Lang, who is with us. And, I would really like, because this is the one podcast that's going to go on the day before Lilydale opens. And so I'm just chatting with you, reminding you of these wonderful people that we are all going to be with. I mean, Rachel is very multi-talented, as you well know, and being involved politically with Ojai, and even having done a retreat with Colby Rebel, which was fun.
Yeah, Rachel's one of my favorite people in the world. I've known her for years. We've been in each other's homes. Rachel is not only a brilliant astrologer, and as you said, very involved politically. She's mayor pro tem of the city of Ohio. Elected to the Ohio, not Ohio, Ojai, in where Krishnamurti's center was, in just outside of L.A. But Rachel is an elected official to the Ojai City Council as an astrologer. Also, she has a master's degree in theology from Mount Marymount College, and she's just absolutely great. And I know she's looking forward to this also because of her connection also as a psychic medium and the work that she does in that realm aside from astrology. And this is one of the exciting things about doing this work at Lilydale, and that is, as I don't need to tell you, or probably most people watching, it's the environment that kind of changes everything just a little bit, because many people do astrology for different reasons, but the fact that astrology as a whole body of knowledge just is seated so firmly into the spiritual metaphysical realms, and that makes it really just totally magical for me to be coming back to Lilydale. I think this will be my fourth time at Lilydale. Very excited for it.
Yeah, and Rachel already said to me that she intends to go out to the stump or forest temple and give some messages. How fabulous that
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And
I
yes,
would I would too, but I would just be making it up.
yeah, but you're going to bring your flute and you're going to play for us.
I will do
And
that.
Kenneth Miller, who has his master's degree in astrology from Kepler.
Yes, and I've also known Kenneth for a long time. One of the bright intellectual, kind of beacons in the modern astrological community, and of course, Anne Orderly also. Anne and I go back to an OPA conference that I was facilitating, and she was in my group as already a well seasoned, practiced professional astrology. She comes out of the New York community there, but is also just really brilliant and shows up as a person. I mean, she's like, like you want real stuff. Anne is the person. She doesn't hold back. And of course,
Not at all.
Cassandra, who's no stranger to you guys over there. I saw Cassandra in Los Angeles, Cassandra Butler in Los Angeles a few months ago at the Conscious Life Expo. No, it's a great group that you put together. And you.
Thank you. I'm going to be talking about Urania, and I'm particularly Urania and the eclipses, which is I find very interesting, including its connection to CERN.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Interesting. Yeah.
So that's where I'm going. It's going to be an easy lecture, so everybody, don't not to worry. Um, but I think that this is all part of the spiritual consciousness as a community that we just want to embrace each other. And of course, we got Cameron Allen, and he's going to be on the AI panel talking about how AI would affect you physically.
Yeah. Yeah. And Cameron is another bright light. I've known Cameron for several years also. And his ability to connect the intellectual metaphysical side of astrology to the actual body, whether it's through, herbs or medicines or, practical interfacing, yeah, Cameron is also just a wealth of information. I'm looking forward to, his work also. And I'm actually really looking forward to sitting with these other people, because you've put this in a way I'm getting to be on, a couple of different panels talking about things like AI with other people who have done work in that area too. And this is where the real, community interaction comes out, rather than just getting to talk about my perspective, which I'm happy to do, and I'm looking forward to it. As you know, my full day workshop is really about revisioning astrology for modern times. Um, I think I mentioned before we began recording that I did the opening keynote for the Northwest Astrology Conference here, and my lecture was on the future of astrology. And in it, I acknowledged and recognized the importance of the old traditions, both from the Hindu Vedas, the Jyotish or Hindu or Vedic astrology, and the Hellenistic astrology from the turning points that happened 2,000 years ago in classical Greece. But we don't live in those worlds. The world that we live in today is very different. Our concerns are different. Our perceptual orientation to the outer world is different. In those days, they didn't even see as many colors as we see. Their minds were different. They were not concerned. They didn't have language for things like metaphysical or unconscious or projection or all this depth psychology work that we, moderners have. And so my talk is going to be aimed at both those people who know and practice astrology, and also those people who don't have a clue, because it's not going to be lost in the technical stuff. It's going to be looking at how we can embrace the view of the cosmos, of the outer world, of the movement of the planet, and how we can actually utilize that in our life, because our consciousness is changing. And again, I know I don't need to tell you this. Our consciousness right now, individually and as a species, is changing faster than it's probably ever changed in a moment in history. We are being thrust almost like through the birth canal into something that you and I and others can have an idea of what's around the bend, but no one knows because the bend is that it's that big. And so I'm going to be talking about astrology and its role and its part in this, what I like to just call the new consciousness that's developing. And I'm also going to incorporate some very interesting integration of astrology with in the talk it says reincarnation and ET, but I don't mean ET as spacemen. Any consciousness that doesn't have 2 feet on the ground is extraterrestrial. And so, from that standpoint, I'm really excited about doing this at Lilydale, which has held that banner up for well over a century. More and more people now have become, whether they were pushed or just intrigued into understanding that the metaphysical realms are are not less important and are not separate from the physical realms. We have things like the telepathy tapes, and we have things like work that's being done in remote viewing and other forms of consciousness, the whole mind expansion piece of the 1960s, even up through these days. And so, from that standpoint, I'm really wanting to help people understand that astrology isn't just some clever parlor game, whatever. It's actually part of a cosmology that actually fits into all these things that we're being confronted with here at the beginning of the 21st century. And then I will also spend some time giving the participants a complete overview of where we are now. And when I say now, I mean in August of 2026, but I also mean from the beginning of 2026 all the way through the year. But I also mean even going back to the craziness of 2020 and when humanity had a stroke. I know people think of that as the COVID or quarantine period, but our species basically was running around doing all of its stuff. And then one day it just stopped. We had a
Yeah.
collective stroke, and we are now still in recovery from that experience. But then we'll go back to the big changes of 2012 to 2015 and look at that in light of the 1960s. We're going to take a big historical swing so that we can understand why things seem so uncertain, so disruptive, so crazy at this moment in time, because they are, and we're right on schedule to get to where we've been trying to get to, perhaps for a couple of millennia at least.
Well, I am so excited because this astrology week, yes, Lilydale has been here for 147 years doing hands-on healing and mediumship and open-mindedness in a community. And with each one of those panels that you are on, I'm going to be your moderator, and we're going to
Does
have
that mean I'm going to have to be good?
never. Oh, like I could make Ann Ortley good? Oh
Right.
no, no, no. We want it we want it right and fresh and honest, all right? And there will be a mic and where people can ask questions because it's just like you're saying, this is about community. This is about getting the consciousness rolling into such a place where people uh, really have an opportunity to know that they are a significant part of this process.
Yeah.
And it's really important to me.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and my previous experiences at Lilydale have always, in my mind, been less about what comes out of my mouth, which I think is pretty good stuff sometimes, but also what comes back into my ears, and that process of thinking aloud and having it go through other people's perspectives and then coming back, and that cyclicity of that process, which creates community. And quite frankly, it's the only thing that's going to get us through these crazy days, these years, is going to be us being able to establish sound and stable community. And I think that that really becomes the really the most important thing. But I actually believe, and this will be part of what I'll be talking about, that whether it's ET or psychic mediumship or past life regression, do you know that past life regression, although past lives have been, part of uh, human awareness for thousands of years, for millennia, that the first hypnotically induced past life session was in 1953 in Colorado. Someone who had been studying hypnosis that heard that someone in clinically was able to regress someone back to memories within the womb, and that person did this in front of a group of friends with a subject that he knew, and all of a sudden the person began speaking in this very thick Irish brogue, and it turned into a really deep dive. Whereas years later, this person went to Ireland and found and reconstructed this entity that had been coming through. And the book is called The Search for Bridie Murphy, who was the name.
Right.
Yeah, and this isn't new to me. I read that book when I was still in high school, 60 years ago. I've just turned 77, and so this isn't just some new passing thing for me, but I do believe that that the human species has been vibrating itself higher and higher. And I'm not talking about the popular ideas of ascension, although I wouldn't set that aside. That's a separate talk. But our frequencies, which used to be based upon diurnal and natural rhythms, began increasing when we began working with electricity and electromagnetic radiation and sending that through the airwaves at thousands of cycles a second. We listen to an AM radio, it's 1150 or 570 kilohertz, thousands of cycles every second, and then a FM radio that went up into the realms of millions megahertz cycles a second. And then everyone now has a device in their pocket that is vibrating at billions of cycles a second. And that's astronomical. However, when we just look at someone and we see the color red or see the color green, we're seeing frequencies that are vibrating at hundreds of trillions of cycles a second. And I actually believe that we create technology and then technology creates us, not just my idea. This goes back to many ancient theologians. It goes back to William Blake, to James Joyce, to Marshall McLuhan. But the point here is that we are vibrating ourselves into this space where meta to physical is actually dominant over the physical, and we are still in that process. We're in a cannon, we're in a rocket ship that is being exploded out into the cosmos, and I, for one, am excited.
I am too, because, it's just like we have this opportunity of a lifetime to be here. I mean, I can't put into words what it can mean to our individual spirit and soul's growth.
I don't agree with you there. I think you live a life where you do that every day.
Oh, well.
you know
But I
but
think that
there's another
it's
part of
exciting
this too,
times.
Patricia. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
think it's very exciting times.
Yeah, but there is another part of this too, and that is that in our excitement for these new breakthroughs and this new awareness on very old things, it's important that we don't forget about I'm going to use a military term, I don't like it, the collateral damage. As a species, there is a lot of suffering going on, that it's really important that we don't just aim our minds and hearts at the beauty and the where we're going with this, but we have to be aware of what's going on in our lives, with our family, with our friends, with dealing with, with very difficult situations. And it's part of the larger process. It's not that one, should overtake the other. It's that's part of the magic and the beauty of being in a human body. Here we could have a long discussion, I think, about the role of Saturn in astrology, or the role of the planet or object that moves out past Uranus and inside of Saturn. That would be Chiron, and how the physicality of being a human can't be set aside. In a way, we're all like the mythological Chiron, who is a brilliant teacher. People forget. People love the word wounded when they use the word Chiron, but people forget that Chiron actually imparted the healing arts to Asclepius. That Chiron also imparted the martial arts to some of the great warriors like Hercules. And so Chiron was a teacher, but he taught from a place of being in a human body that had a critical wound. And I dare say this, we all have a critical wound, because we're all going to drop this body at some point in time. So Chiron was granted immortality, but his wound wasn't cured. And so it becomes that place from where we all share our humanness. We all have things in our life that I like to say no amount of sex, drugs, or rock and roll can fix. No amount of therapy, no amount of dream work, no amount of spiritual practice, no amount of yoga, no amount of anything is going to change the fact that we exist in a three-dimensional world in which our human body is in some way containing this, or is a vessel for the expression of this consciousness. And it's very exciting to see people becoming aware that their body doesn't end at their skin, and that their consciousness doesn't exist inside their brain. Their brain is just a transceiver, a receiver transmitting mechanism that's pulling the stuff out of, let's just call it the quantum field, for lack of a better word. Sorry, I get going, but this is why I'm excited about being in Lilydale.
Well, we're excited to have you, but you know, you know that many people who come here to Lilydale is because of their wounding.
Exactly, exactly.
And
And
they
many
come
people,
here.
it's the primary reason why people are motivated to take a first step on any spiritual path.
Exactly. And it's sort of like, what is it? It's the crack that lets the light in.
Right. Well, and that crack can be not only a physical injury or an environment that was abusive or whatever, but as I know that you know and have written about, it's just the being people say, oh, death is a horrible thing. No, it's mostly horrible to those left behind. You,
Exactly.
and I'm laughing. I don't mean that to be funny. It's just that we sometimes get it wrong, but that loss of a loved one, like we've all experienced, but I know you've written about it, that often becomes a turning point in how we begin to create a new relationship with ourselves and the world in which we live.
Well, it's interesting because yesterday in church, Dr. Neil Zipkowski brought me a message, and it was the anniversary of my son's death of 9 years.
Yeah.
And he talked about fishing, and he gave the name, and he's talked about this fishing and Jim and James. Well, my father was Jim, and so was James was my son. And so I showed him the picture of him and the two of them at Bud and Mary's Fishing in Key
Hmm.
West. And
Hmm.
it's just, how exciting is that?
Hmm.
How,
Hmm.
I mean, it just, I mean, it runs, even though I've been doing this for a long time, it's just
No,
such,
it never ceases. Well, at first it never ceased to amaze me. Now it never ceases to reassure me. It's a slightly different thing. I'll never lose my my wowness around it, and I never get cocky about it, thinking that things like that should happen. I don't think I've ever told you this, but when I was 26, I went to my first spiritualist meeting, the spiritualist church that was meeting in Minneapolis at that time, where I was living, and had someone pull a message out of the air. I did not know anyone in the entire room, that pulled a message not only out of the air, but out of my heart, that was just like, and at that moment, I mean, I didn't disbelieve in any of this stuff, but at that moment it became, like sensible. I mean, of the senses, it was basically real in my body.
And that's phenomenally important, because when you have that experiential of connection, it brings you to that other plane.
Yeah, and we mentioned this just momentarily before we started recording. One of the things that is happening, actually, we're recording this at the beginning of June. One of the things that's happening in June is that Chiron, which is a 50-year cycle, is leaving Aries, where it's been for the last several years, and moving into Taurus, where I believe we will see a lot more embodiment, because Taurus is perhaps the most embodied sign. It's earth, it's physical, it's of the senses. And I think a lot of this stuff, which has been intellectually, has been intellectual, it's been intuitive, it's been real in our minds, is now going to be seated. That's like a seat, not seated, but it's going to be grounded in a way that will be palatable to many more people than it is already.
I agree 100%. And one of the things that Cameron's doing is celestial uh, agriculture.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. Because yes, Mother Earth has gone through this, that, and the other thing. And with data centers and droughts and things of this nature, celestial agriculture, in my mind, for the layperson, is
Hmm.
so important,
Hmm.
because to me, it makes us feel more safe and secure that Mother Earth is still vibing with us.
Yeah, and you say for the layperson, one of the problems that astrology has in the real world, is that it seems very complicated to the uninitiated, who just say, "No, I'll just read my daily horoscope." Now, understand, although you and I and many astrologers know the huge gulf, the difference between daily horoscope astrology based upon the time of year, your sun sign in which you were born, um, that there's a huge gulf between that and what we say is real astrology, meaning horoscopic astrology. But I wrote, as you know, I believe, a daily horoscope column for 20 years. I had in the range of 10 to 20 million readers every day. And my goal in that entire process was always to help train people to become better astrological consumers by their increased awareness. There was a column where it was, yes, it was based upon you're a Libra, you're a Gemini, you whatever, but it was always feeding other information, because astrology is something that everyone can gain from. Once you begin to learn the metaphors, once you begin to learn the cycles, you'll never forget them, you'll never unlearn them. And so it's this kind of thing that as we move through life, we know more about, instead of using a GPS to navigate through space, astrology is like a TPS, a temporal positioning system that helps us navigate through time. And that's the exciting thing. And of course, Einstein said that time and space were intimately interwoven. And that's part of what my orientation is, to helping people learn about astrology without getting lost in the technical aspects, although I love the technical aspects.
Oh, I know you and your quintiles and sextiles. They're awesome. Uh, but you know, the other piece is that by people recognizing, as Carl Sagan said, we're 47% stardust anyhow, that we're not estranged from this, that
That's
we
right.
can
Yeah.
truly embrace the stars as part of who we truly are a part of.
Well, the fact of the matter is that when people hear the old adage that came from Hermes Trismegistus in Egypt, the Emerald Tablet, as above, so below, they somehow forget what followed that. And that is, as above, so below, the within of things is as the without of things. Not that one is a reflection of the other, but they're one thing. And that's the illusion that we have as consciousness riding a wave, surfing an invisible wave between the deeper, lower frequencies out there and the higher frequencies in here. We have this illusion that outside and inside are two separate things, and we're surprised when something matches up. Well, they can't not match up, double negative intended, because they're the same damn thing. The in and the out are one. And that's really the underlying message of exploring with astrology, whether you're using it to make a decision in your life, whether you're using it to learn more about yourself, whether you're using it to understand how plants might interact with our consciousness or physicality, whether you're using it to understand social organizational, systems, whether you're using it for agricultural understanding. All these things are all facets on the same crystal. And again, yeah, that's part of why astrology is so important. Astrology was really the moving factor in almost the entire trajectory of modern thinking, going all the way back to Plato and the Neoplatonists and to Plotinus, going through the great scientific discoveries, whether it was, Isaac Newton's discovery of gravity based upon Johannes Kepler, who actually figured out the movements of planets, but he was an astrologer. He figured out his real world three-dimensional stuff to be a better astrologer. And it's easy to just set all that aside and think, oh, no, that's ancient mind. What did they know? Now, the fact is that we are learning what they already knew.
It's interesting because James Maxwell Clark, back in the 1800s, as you well know, with the energy about Saturn, but he also did his experiments in particle reformulation.
And did you know he wrote a whole lot of poems that are just really cool poems about electromagnetism and how it works? Yeah,
And he addressed the elementals.
yeah,
He said that particle reformulation will happen when we have a consciousness to understand the elements in general.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, wow. You know, I would hope I'd love to see more of his poems released. I guess I have to say that. You know, if we could find them somewhere somehow, that would also be great. Do you,
I have them. I will send you some.
ah, lucky me, lucky me, lucky me. Well, I know that there's a lot going on in June, including Jupiter going into Leo. And we've got all these. I mean, first of all, I have to stop for a second and just express my gratitude for having been in the astrological world as long as I have been. I I sit and I say to myself, how would have I made it if I didn't understand this
Really?
stuff?
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And it just so I can understand the desire for you and everybody to share, because it just allows you to see pieces of the puzzle that you may not be aware of.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what do you think Jupiter and Leo might touch upon?
Well, again, I think that we're in such a wide, deep sweep that we've never had before. As Jupiter moves into Leo, and this will kind of come to a first round of fruition in mid-July. But as Jupiter moves into Leo, it's going to pick up on the other heavyweight outer planets that are also in either fire, Leo being fire, or air, that when Jupiter moves into Leo, it's going to begin harmonizing or trining with Neptune in fiery Aries. And it's going to then oppose Pluto in airy, intellectual, community minded, futuristic Aquarius. And then it's also going to sextile Uranus, having recently just moved into Gemini, kind of speeding up the whole, technology and information flow. And I think that by the time we get to Lilydale in August, I say we, I mean the astrologers, that we're going to be in a world that's different than the world that we have been in up until now, that there's some things coming that are going to open things up wider than we would have ever imagined.
I agree with you totally. And that's why I'm so excited. And that's why I'm reminding everybody, if you haven't gotten your reservations for Lilydale, get on the phone, either talk, see if you can get into the Maplewood Hotel or one of the guest houses here, because uh, we were just informed that this week is the pre-sales are very busy.
Yeah. And obviously, people can go to the website that has all of the talks, all of the descriptions. I think one of the cool things about the way you've set this up is that people can come for the entire week. But if they want, they can take a day off. If they want, they can go to just hear Rachel or just hear Anne or me or Cameron or Kenneth or Cassandra. It's set up in kind of like as an entire process, or as discrete events, whether they're the individual workshops or the panel discussions. And there's complete descriptions, detailed descriptions of everyone's work and what everyone's presenting on the website. And so I think that's very cool the way it's been set up.
And we have our catalog that's out.
Yay.
And to see you guys right there in the back. And notice we have a QR code. So if you want your tickets, you can use a QR code. I mean, it's like we've come into the 21st century,
Yeah.
which, as you well know, Lilydale is not exactly moving as rapidly. We are an old growth forest. We are a historical landmark. In fact, my house is one of the first homes ever owned by a woman in 1883.
Oh, I never
And
knew that. I've stayed at your home, obviously, but I've
yes,
never known that. Very cool.
and it has been designated by the Department of Interior, as well as much of Lilydale, that we are a historical landmark because of the women's movement as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's got such fabulous energy. And yes, you get to come to the classes, but you can also go to the beach and walk through the old growth forest and get messages. And who knows? It's like Kenneth said, he'll be at the coffee shop, so be open to talk and be free. It's a whole different,
Yep.
yummy environment.
Yep.
So, is as we sort of let this wonderful time pass, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think we've kind of, well, I'd say we've covered it, but I think we could talk for hours and still feel like we're just on a surface somewhere. But I think that it's really important for people, even when feeling overwhelmed, to understand that that's part of what is consciously being foisted on us right now, is this flooding of information and of images, and in a way hoping that we'll all just pull the covers up over our head and say, I can't deal with this, I'm going home, I don't want to, I'm shutting down. And that is the absolute worst thing that we can do. Now, everybody has to find their own comfort place as to, how much they can take or what they can do. And everyone has different roles. Some people have to be very active. Some people are helpers. Some people just need to gather information. But the point is that we will never be at this moment again. And you can't just sit around, or you can, but I think you'll pay a price if you just sit around and make believe that nothing is going on right now. That simply being aware, simply being open, adaptable, flexible, and being aware that it doesn't matter what you think you know, because you don't. And I say that including myself. I mean, I've spent much of my adult life trying to figure out what's out there and to figure out what's around next bends, so to speak. And I think I'm pretty good at it.
Oh, I
But
think you're awesome.
but I don't know what's around this bend because humanity has never been around this bend before. Often we can look back and see cycles that repeat yearly. We know what happens in the seasons, cycles that repeat based upon slower rhythms, whether they're the every 36 Saturn Neptune, every 36-year Saturn Neptune conjunction that we had earlier this year, or the every other century or century long Uranus Pluto cycle, or the every 500-year Neptune Pluto cycle. But what's going on right now, astrologers all over the planet have dug back as far as we can go with computers, and this one's never occurred before, and that's going to be part of what I'll be talking about, and I'm sure the other astrologers will be also, from their perspective, is that this is a unique moment in time.
It is. We were very blessed to have Madeline Hillestein on our
Deneen, yes,
podcast.
I know Madlis.
And
Madeleine.
Madeline has offered anybody who hasn't got um, Solar Fire a discount of 20% if they'd like to buy it before, from now until the end of June. Just go in and say Bell 20. And if you haven't got Solar Fire and this is going to be something you'd like to have when you come to Lilydale, we've got it prepared for you to, get a discount and come, which I think was very kind of her to
Yeah,
do
and
that.
anyone who's ever seen any of my online videos, Solar Fire is the tool. There's a lot of good astrology software out there, and there are others that are really excellent too. But Solar Fire is my software of choice because of its, not just because of its accuracy. Most astrology software is accurate, but because of its flexibility and its usefulness.
Plus, it has the tutorials to help a young or new astrologer not to feel as scared as they do using a software,
Yeah.
which I like. But how beautiful it is. It's like we're going to have this awesome time together that I am so thrilled about welcoming all of you and having this celebration of life and love and community. And I cannot tell you how much it touches my heart. It just
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So, as you remind people, what do you always tell them?
That's an easy one, although I've
Yes.
added a line to it.
Oh,
Um,
good.
it well, the original terms that came out a couple of decades ago was think globally, act locally as part of the environmental movement. And I always say, nope, globally isn't far enough out to stretch our awareness. We need to think cosmically, but thinking cosmically is not useful unless we act locally. So my closing line on almost all my podcasts and appearances that I make is think cosmically, act locally. And now I add, and do not go back to sleep.
Oh, great. That's fabulous. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Rick, for coming back on with us again. You're always an inspiration. And I can't wait till you get here. You
Looking
know,
forward to seeing you guys.
yes, absolutely.
All right.
So, Once again, thanks a lot.
Thank you.